Hey everybody, welcome to this special hockey happy hour version of the Our Line Starts podcast. Liam McHugh in New York, Keith Jones in Jersey. We're going to be joined by Rick Tocchet in just a bit, the head coach of the Arizona Coyotes. You know, Jonesy, I had Boosh and Sharpie on for our last podcast. We're talking about how we missed each other because basically we just missed busting on each other, pulling pranks on each other. So it got me to thinking, best prank you were involved with as a player.
It was done by Dale Hunter, actually, Liam, and it was prior to me playing with him, but he passed it on to all of us, which I was really happy about. He was playing for the Quebec Nordiques. Every Friday night there was a lottery in Canada for $1 million or more at that time, and the players would all buy tickets individually. And the bus driver, after the game on that Friday night, would then read out the numbers over the loudspeaker, and everyone would check their tickets to see how they had done. There was a guy named J.F. Sauvé, Bob Sauvé's brother, I believe, who was a younger guy, kind of fringe player, but loved the lottery. So they got a hold of his ticket prior to the game out of his suit jacket, took the numbers, wrote them down, and handed them to the bus driver. And unbeknownst to J.F. Sauvé, his numbers were already in the hands of the bus driver. He sat down at the back of the bus. Everybody got ready. And the bus driver started the numbers, and Huntsy said he was staring at Sauvé the whole time. And as each number was read, you could see him sit up a little higher in his seat, a little higher in the seat. And finally, whatever the last number, 5, was announced, he jumped out of his seat, ran down, told the coach where he could stuff it, walked off the bus in celebration. And Huntsy said they loved it for a second and then couldn't believe how far he took it, because it was way more money than he was making, and he was tired of sitting on the bench. So he took that moment to send a message to the head coach on exactly how he felt about him. It didn't go well after that, and it was not a happy time when he figured out that the boys had got him with that one. I don't think he played many more games in the NHL after that, actually.
No, I can't imagine he would. So basically the beginning of the end of his career, courtesy of you guys. So well done there, but that's fantastic. That's a classic one. I'll have to ask Rick about best prank he pulled in just a bit. You know, listen, quick update around the NHL. We haven't had games since March 11th. We miss it desperately. We know you do as well. I think the least amount of games that any team has played is 68. So the regular season, whether they finish that or not, it's still up in the air. Playoffs, this idea of potentially a centralized playoff, playing one in a particular city in a few arenas within that city has been thrown out there as well. There's a report out there that Grand Forks, North Dakota, Manchester, New Hampshire, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan are a few areas there that potentially could be out there. I believe Bill Daly told ESPN that different sites are pitching them from around the country. So Keith Jones, since, you know, we're speculating, and this is more or less fantasy because we don't know, is there a place, if you could just pick, where you would like to see a playoff game where you will probably never see one or wouldn't have seen one before this?
I think Saskatchewan sounds like a great spot to be. There's not a lot of people. I think it'd be pretty easy to keep the guys isolated. Your concerns would be hotels and accommodation. That's a lot of games to play in one area. I do believe you, Liam, would need multiple spots in order to do it just because of availability with arenas. I think a team like a spot that's already exists in the NHL now, being Vegas, would be an ideal spot just because of the number of hotels that are there. So that would make it rather easy in that regard. The other thing you have to look for is maybe cities that have had, you know, an NHL team and a minor league team that play out of different arenas. It used to be that way in Philadelphia. It no longer is since they took the Spectrum down. But that would be the type of situation I think would be ideal in this scenario. I'll take hockey anywhere, though. I think it would be made for television type entertainment if, in fact, we can get it back. I think it'd be an incredible tournament rush to the finish. And I think we'd see games being played from 9 a.m. till, 1 a.m. in the morning, all day long. It would be pretty neat stuff. So fingers crossed that we get some hockey back.
Exactly. I'll take it any way we can get it. If it is empty arena, if it is centralized, I do like the idea of smaller venues, more intimate venues, because in many ways, if there are no fans there while you're watching from home, it's going to feel almost like you're eavesdropping on a situation. So I like that. But at this point, as you mentioned it, Any way we can get it, I'd be happy with it. All right, up next, we are going to talk with Arizona Coyotes head coach Rick Tocchet. We'll discuss not only his playing days, but what's going on right now with his team as they sit and wait. And welcome back. Now very happy to be joined by Arizona Coyotes head coach, Jonesy's former teammate, Rick Tocchet. Rick, it's great to see you. You know, Jonesy was just talking about the biggest prank that he pulled as a player. What's the biggest one that you were involved with?
Yeah, first of all, pranks are very important during the year because you're together with each other all the time, and a little comedy relief helps. That's why Jonesy's probably one of the best teammates I ever had. He was great at that. But we had God rest his soul, Greg Smith, a big defenseman, great guy. He was a rookie, and we told him when you come over the Waldman Bridge, Bobby Clark had got a new system now. All you have to do is when you come to the basket, you know where you put your change or your money in this hotel booth. All you have to yell into the basket, Flyers, and the arm will go up. We have a special thing from the city. So he was with another rookie, and it's confirmed by the other rookie. He comes up and he goes to the basket. He yells, "Flyers!" Well, the arm doesn't go up. So Greg's he's a very tough guy, boisterous guy. So he did it about 3 or 4 times. Now, this is Philly. People are behind. They're honking the horn. They're giving the finger. Let's go. Let's go. So now one of the toll booth guys comes out of his booth, comes out, "Yeah, what's the problem here?" And he goes, "Hey, I'm with the Flyers. I just yelled Flyers in the basket. Get this effing thing, arm up." And the guy goes, "Well, I don't care who you play for. You got to put," at that time was $1. "You got to put $1 in that basket." So now Smith's getting out of this thing, arguing with this guy. He's going to fight this guy. He said, "I'm going to tell Ed Snyder, and I'm going to have your badge number." So anyways, finally the other rookie had to calm things down. I think he might have called Bobby Clark or something, and Clark, he just said, "Put your money and get to the rink." So that was one of the best pranks. That's a legendary story because it's gone around through a lot. I get the young guys ask me about that, and I get the old guys asking me about it today.
That one's fantastic. That's an all-timer, especially you can just see it in Philly. The people behind them, just, come on, all right, already. And not that language, obviously. Definitely not that polite. I mean, I think it's one of the things we all miss. Like, we don't get to be around guys. You don't get to be around your team. So, we don't, get to rib each other or play pranks on each other. But from your perspective right now, what are you doing? How much communication do you have with your players? And how are you filling the time?
Yeah, it's not a ton. I think you just after the first couple of weeks, I just want to see how they were doing their family. It's not about really hockey. Hey, where are you? Are you safe? What are you doing? Type of things. If you need anything, I know John Tocchet checks on it a lot. Is there anything in the medical staff? Just little things like that we can need. And then you just obviously start, the guys are itching to talk a little hockey. What can you do? I know guys, some guys don't have gyms. Is there other ways you can improve your game? And I think you had feedback. And then we had a little recap. You do have a little recap. Some guys that, hey, I got to get better, or, the reasons why this and stuff like that. So I think that's healthy. I'm not sure that we're going to check it every day because I think, but checking in with these guys just to make sure that they're okay is very important.
Rick, how much video work are you guys doing and scouting some of the teams that have been really successful this year and just really going over what your team has done so far?
Yeah, John Tocchet had a really good exercise with his management team, and I jumped on the call the other day. They watched the Pens-Nashville playoff finals. They'd watch the first game, and then they'd talk the next day about what did they see and, those sort of things, characteristics. And then they went all the way to Game 6, and then I jumped in on Game 6. It was really interesting to watch that. I haven't watched that game in a long time, just to get feedback. So that's an exercise. And, kind of put some ideas with me I've talked to a couple of players, I talked to Jacob Chikrin the other day, and he was talking about 6-on-5. So I'm going to send him some clips and maybe, whether you Zoom with a couple of guys and just talk about it, it's very, very casual stuff, but I think it's very important to keep the juices going when you're really at home doing nothing, other than being safe.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a tricky time, obviously, from just a hockey perspective, because your team's played 70 games, 4 points out of playoff position, and it's really a great unknown. Will we return to hockey? If we do, will there be a regular season, or will they go to the playoffs? I think I know where you would like that to be. You'd like the regular season, I'm assuming, to get back in there. with the limited amount of games that you potentially could have left and being 4 points out, I mean, let's say the regular season does get played out. Let's say that happens. How confident are you that your team could be in playoff position at the end?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because before this, and it's not an excuse. We had a real tough part of the schedule, and now the schedule kind of favors. We have 8 or 9 home games, and we're putting some wins at home. We had a tough time on the road, so now we had some time in between games. This was kind of our, do we make our run? Can we rattle off 6 or 7 wins? So that's the unfortunate part. But I do understand both sides. If you had to jump right into the first 16 teams, that I get both sides. It's unfortunate because this schedule favors us now, and we don't get that advantage. So I know people are kicking different scenarios, and honestly, I can give you my opinion, but obviously the hierarchy is going to make that decision.
Health-wise, where's your team at? Is there some players that would be available to you now if in fact we do return?
Yeah, like Garland's getting very healthy. Brad Richardson, same thing. So, by the time this happens, we'd be pretty well full, 100%. Kepper would be 100%. Ranta, who those 2 guys are a backbone of our team. So, I guess a lot of teams could say the same thing, being fairly healthy. But we would definitely, taking the negative of this, we would be the positive part. We would be healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I look at your club and I see really 2 major questions. And the big question is the one we just addressed, the idea of being on the outside looking in. Will you get an opportunity to potentially play yourself in the play? The other big question, of course, is Taylor Hall, because your team made a big move. You trade for Taylor Hall, but his contract is up at the end of the year. You look ahead to next season. Do you see Taylor Hall being a member of your club?
Well, it's a tough question because, Taylor earned the right to go to free agency. And I talked the other day. He just gives positive feedback. He made some great points. He wants to come back. But, listen, he's got to test the market. He knows, it's the unknown. Would I like to see him come? Absolutely. There's unfinished business. I know he feels he can contribute more to his game, but he's a competitive guy. He's a guy that wants to win. He wants to go somewhere that is pointing the right direction. I mean, I think we check a lot of the boxes that he wants to win. So we'll see. There's a lot of free agents. There's a lot of questions with contracts right now. It's a lot of the unknowns right now.
Toc, you played for the Phoenix Coyotes and now coaching the Arizona Coyotes. Other than the name, what's different? Where's hockey at right now in Arizona?
Well, you know what? I think they're starving for some kind of stability over the years. You guys lived at the question marks with ownership and are they going to move? And that takes its toll. There's a lot of factors. When I came in about 3 years ago, you could tell there was a lot of uneasiness, if we're staying. And I think John Check has done a nice job trying to stabilize. He's tried to keep, he's signed people long-term deals. Like, the old Coyotes, they get rid of players because they just couldn't afford to keep them. Now we're starting to get some traction there. We're starting to play more important games the last few years. And, now there's another level. And the fans are looking for something to grasp onto. They're looking for, we're in a market that if you don't win, people go golfing. It's nice weather. There's other things to do. You got the Phoenix Suns. You got the Cardinals. There's a lot of different things to do. So we've grasped the market the last year and a half because we're starting to play better. Now we got to get the next level, and that's into the playoffs.
I'm going to talk a little bit about your playing days. Already discussed the biggest and best prank you pulled on a teammate. I'm curious. You were a rugged player. Who was the one guy that you now look back and say, "Oh man, I hated the idea of dropping the gloves with this guy"?
Well, there's a lot of guys. I mean, obviously the late and great Bob Probert. I mean, I remember going to Detroit. When I was locked up with him, we were fighting. It was like, your attention's there. But there's so many other. I was very lucky to as a rookie for about 7 years. We had probably the toughest. The Craig Breweries, the Dave Browns. These guys were, Glenn Cochran. These guys were men, and they could handle themselves. So I was very lucky to be in that environment. But to me, Dave Brown, up there with the Dave Brown, Bob Probert were scary guys. I mean, if you got in a fight with those guys, you had to be prepared to, at least you had to know what you're doing. Put it that way. Or you do the old Jonesy, like, hey Joe, the banana, slip on the banana peel, fall down, do the old seatbelt, the seatbelt. and then go down. But yeah, those guys were scary individuals for sure.
Tocchet had a philosophy that he passed on to me, and before I played with him, I played against him, and that was never fun. Like, he never stopped. But your philosophy, Toc, was when you fought somebody, you wanted to make sure they didn't want to fight you again. And I watched that Probert fight. You headbutted him twice in that fight. But how well did that philosophy serve you? You were a tough guy to play against.
Well, the only thing with fight, like, listen, I handle myself, but the one thing I felt that a good advantage is that if if you're over your head, I could be able to, I could grab on a guy and hold a guy. I'm a strong guy, so it wasn't like I was ever in danger. Like, if you fight those guys, if you didn't want to trade punches, whatever, because this guy's a better puncher than you. Like, I was good at holding on to a guy fairly calm. Like, they always talk those UFC fighters, they get on the bottom of the pile, all those great UFC. They don't panic, they breathe, and that's the one thing I could be able to do. But, you fight guys like Craig Berube and those guys, you start swinging with those guys, you better prepare, there's some date, there could be you could be lights out very quickly. So that's the one thing. I did have the advantage of being able to grab a guy and hold on if I had to.
Yeah, I think to paraphrase Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until Craig Berube hits you in the face. And then the plan
yeah.
right out the window.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember Craig Berube fight Ty Domi about 4 times. I remember, and they talked today. Ty's a great guy, and I remember after the fight, after the second period, Chief comes in the dressing room and goes, "I'm not fighting this guy anymore." And he literally hit this guy Ty with 30 punches. We counted. I'm not saying everything was a great punch, and he said, "I'm done. You can't hurt that melon. I can't hurt that head because I'm done fighting that guy." So that was pretty funny.
Let's go from tough guys to some of the greats of all time, because you played with them, you played against them. So if you were drafting a team right now, any player, any era, the number 1 pick for you would be who?
Yeah, that's a great. I have to go. It's the 1A, 1B. It's Gretzky and Lemieux for me. I mean, both to me. I've been in moments, played with those guys in these moments, and watched those guys how they seized the moment, the way they acted in the dressing room, the way they acted with people, the public. To me, it's those 2 guys. But for me, there's so many great players I've coached and played against. Obviously Sidney Crosby, Joe Sakic when I was in Colorado, guys like that. But when you talk about Lemieux and Gretzky in the moments, and to put up the numbers they have, to me, that's legendary.
Did you ever think to yourself that you'd be playing with 2 of the best players in the history of the game? Your line mates with both guys, and so much of that had to do with your style of play and your ability to score goals too. It's not easy to stay on the top line, but you did it throughout your career. What was the secret?
Fit the puzzle. If you look at Mario or Wayne, and they'll tell you today that they wanted to play with north-south guys. I mean, it's no difference, Jonesy, when you play with Lindros and Renberg, you fit the role as that guy would go to the net, dish the puck, give and go. And I think, if you can to survive to be a top guy in your role, you have to do it to the best. You have to be that north-south guy. They don't need east-west. They don't need a guy holding on the puck, and they don't need a guy circling back. They just need a guy to give them the puck, go through, cause havoc, go through the box, be in front of the net. That's when they're at their best. So if you're as a player be able to do that, you'd stick on that line. If you weren't, that's when you have problems. So I think just knowing my role and being a puzzle on that line.
All right, let's go from great players to great games. The greatest game you were involved with as a player?
Oh, wow. Well, for me, it had to be the '87 Canada Cup, just because of the Russian Canada, who was the better country with hockey. There was still communism in Russia. There was communism, and yet Canada, the free country. It was just, I don't know. It was a big buildup. The games were 6-5. It was 3 games. They're all 6-5. Every shift there was a penalty. There'd be a penalty today. I mean, it was actually kind of vicious hockey, but there was the up and down, the tempo of it up and down. I mean, I didn't play a ton, but I had the best seat in the house, and I'll tell you what, it was some great hockey. And what I try to explain to players today, there's certain times in the game you have to take a role. When you have Dale Harachuk and you have Doug Gilmour taking a 4th line role or a checking role when they needed to be, and they filled that role for us to win. That just goes to show you what team is about. No different than guys today. there's certain times in a game you have to play a different role, and that's being a good teammate. So that's probably the greatest game, just because of the flavor of the two countries and the intensity of the games.
I watched that game, Toc. I was playing junior V hockey in Niagara Falls, and I was glued to my television set.
Yeah.
Never imagined one day be playing with some of those guys on the ice, including yourself. What about our 5 overtime game against the Pittsburgh Penguins? What's memories of that one?
Yeah, that's up there in my top 10 for sure. Just the battle of attrition, right? It's every, it's coming in the locker room, every period, like, everybody didn't want to make that mistake. So if you look at the game, there was a lot of, anytime a guy had a puck, there was 5 guys around him. There wasn't a lot of room out there. And obviously it took a phenomenal play by Keith Primo to win it. But saying that, we always talk about that, Jonesy, with Chief. I remember, like, in those tense moments, and I love players like that, there's a little bit of humor still in there. Like, and Jonesy, I still, it actually the pizza thing where Jonesy comes in, we're all, I think it was after the 4th overtime, and guys are tired. John Leclerc was getting an IV. Some guys were exhausted. And I remember Jonesy coming out, he had his shirt off, and he had the gut out, and he had the pizza in his mouth, and he put the sauce around his face, and he said, well, boys, I'm like a bear. I've been hibernating this whole game. I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to win this game. And the whole reaction, even Johnny Leclerc was exhausted. He starts laughing. And I'm not saying it could have been a major reason why we won the game, but I love the humor in tense moments, and that really it kind of loosened the team up. And Jonesy, I to this day I can remember you had that pizza sauce all over your mouth. I'm like a bear. And, I've been hibernating the whole game. I never laughed so hard in my life.
It was the only food left, Liam, in the entire building. I mean, the concessions were out of food. No one had anything else to eat, so we did enjoy that. That was my favorite game to play too. I didn't get a shot on goal. We have game sheets that were given to all of us. Hey, Toc, I'm the only guy that's got a blank slate all the way across, except for a +1 because I was on the ice there, actually trying to change to let Toc come on the ice when the goal was scored by Primo. We had a blast with that. That tied the series 2-2, and then we won the next 2 games after that. Yep. We knew we had him after that point. Jaromir Jagr's legs were going to fall off after that 5 overtime game.
Liam, Jagr's a buddy of mine. When I played with him, I still talk once in a while, but I remember we talked to, this was a couple, said, that Keith Jones, I love that guy. He's a crazy guy. I go, why? He goes, well, Jones, I think it was after the 2nd overtime. He went to their bench. He put his leg on their bench. He starts stretching. He's doing benches and going to the bench. Hey, Yogs, how you doing, buddy? Everything all right? I think he said, how's the market doing? How's the stock market? And I remember Jagr telling me, he said their whole bunch didn't know whether to laugh or get mad at Jonesy. But that I just remember that Yogs telling me that Jonesy, he's crazy.
No, he's the perfect guy to cut the tension. I mean, the first Stanley Cup final I got to do the first couple of games of the Vancouver-Boston series.
Yeah.
And, listen, I was nervous. I'm tense. This is a big moment for me. If I screw this up, I'm going back to, market point. And Jonesy's out there right before they're counting us down. We're in the arena. It's going crazy. And they're like, all right, you're on in 3-2. He looks, don't worry. Nobody's watching. And we're on. So, but he's perfect that way. And you know what? You had a brief stint, right? You had a brief stint broadcasting. And, you were doing some games, some Flyers coverage. Did you get advice from Jonesy?
Yeah, so I was doing the pre and post game. So Jonesy used to do that years ago until he became a media star at NBC. So in the NHL, so Jonesy's very poised. I saw Jonesy one day. Hey, Jonesy, like I'm stumbling around, Liam. I'm like, you give 30 seconds. That red light goes on. I was bumbling. He goes, hey, listen, just keep your ties straight. He said, just start flapping your gums. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Just keep your – I remember that. And he walked away. I got to go. And that was his advice. So good advice, though. I tried to keep my tie straight.
I think it's better advice than didn't Milbury give Bob McKenzie the advice? Remember, when that red light goes on, there are no teammates.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so well, listen, I mean, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We can't wait to see you coaching again, see your team play again. But in the meantime, stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, I miss watching you guys late at night. After our game. So they recap of the reruns and stuff. So I appreciate that. Miss you guys.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Our Line Starts for Hockey Happy Hour. I'm McHugh, Keith Jones, and a special thanks to Arizona Coyotes head coach Rick Tocchet.